Okay, so it happens to almost all of us, right? The alarm goes off, we drag ourselves out of bed, commute, work, pay the bills, and maybe scroll through social media for just a bit too long to numb the exhaustion. Then we go to sleep, wake up, and do the exact same thing all over again. The modern daily grind can be literally draining. But in this explainer, we're not just going to complain about burnout. We are diving into a comprehensive book summary of the incredible work by Héctor García and Francesc Miralles to explore a profound solution. Their book explores a philosophy that can completely flip how you approach your routine, transforming it from a soul-crushing grind into something deeply meaningful.
Right off the bat, before we get into the mechanics of how this all works, I want to ask you kind of a heavy question. What am I actually living for? Honestly, somewhere deep down amidst the endless emails and the errands, so many of us are quietly wondering this exact thing. Have you ever actually paused to ask yourself what the fundamental purpose of your life is? Well, this explainer is designed to help you answer that, not with vague, woo-woo philosophical guesses, but with a structured, actionable approach that you can start using today.
So, Section 1. What actually is Ikigai?
To figure out that massive question of purpose, authors Héctor García and Francesc Miralles traveled to Okinawa, Japan. And Okinawa is famous for having some of the highest life expectancies in the entire world. What they brought back to us is this core concept, Ikigai. It roughly translates to your reason for being. It's the thing that gives your life meaning. It's the reason you get up every morning with a sense of, quiet enthusiasm. And here is the absolutely crucial point to understand right away. Your Ikigai does not have to be some massive world-changing achievement. We constantly think of purpose as curing a disease or building a billion-dollar company. But your Ikigai, it can be a simple passion. It could be your dedication to your family, a quiet craft you're mastering in your garage, or literally just the pursuit of becoming a slightly better version of yourself each day.
And honestly, this reveals exactly why so many of us feel lost. Most people spend years, sometimes decades, chasing goals that were chosen for them by someone else. Society tells us that money means success, so we chase wealth. Society tells us status matters, so we totally exhaust ourselves seeking approval. We end up copying other people's lifestyles because, we've never been taught how to figure out what we actually want. Finding your Ikigai requires the exact opposite approach. You have to look inward. Instead of agonizing over what's going to make other people impressed by me, you start asking, what makes my life meaningful to me? What makes you forget about time passing? What makes you feel genuinely useful?
Moving right along to Section 2, the pillars of Ikigai.
So Ikigai isn't just a mental realization, it's a whole lifestyle built on 4 core pillars that you maintain over a lifetime. First up, stay active. The whole concept of retirement, working yourself to the bone until a certain age and then doing absolutely nothing, doesn't really exist in the Ikigai framework. We fundamentally need activity, purpose, and curiosity. Don't stop living just because you stop your formal career. Keep gardening, learning, cooking, volunteering. Second, appreciate the simple things, which we'll get into in a second. Third, live in the present. We sacrifice way too much of our current joy worrying about a future that hasn't even happened yet. And finally, build strong relationships. We are just not meant to live completely alone. Having a community to support you, and just as importantly, being someone who supports others, gives life a deep, immediate sense of purpose.
In our loud, super complicated modern world, with our buzzing notifications and constantly comparing ourselves to everyone else's highlight reels online, we totally forget that happiness is actually hidden right inside ordinary moments. You really don't need an extraordinary, luxurious event to feel happy. A genuinely good home-cooked meal, a focused, distraction-free conversation with a friend, a peaceful morning walk before the city wakes up. When you stop rushing past these ordinary moments to get to the important stuff, you realize, wait a minute, these moments actually are the important stuff.
And speaking of keeping things balanced and simple, check out the 80% rule. This perfectly illustrates a core physical health principle from the folks in Okinawa called Hara Hachibu. It simply means you should stop eating when you're around 80% full, rather than eating until you're completely stuffed. But beyond just your diet, this 80% rule is a brilliant metaphor for your entire life. It's not about following rigid, punishing rules to be perfect. It's about developing healthy, moderate habits that you can actually sustain over the long haul.
It's about leaving a little room in your cup, rather than pushing yourself to the absolute brink in everything you do. Which brings us to section 3, building resilience against stress. Now, obviously, all of this sounds amazing until Monday morning rolls around and the inbox starts blowing up. Constant, unmanaged stress is the absolute enemy of your Ikigai. It literally steals your life away and disconnects you from what actually matters. So to manage that very real modern stress, the authors outline these highly actionable steps. First, you have to deliberately step away to create moments of calm. Literally put the phone in another room. Second, reconnect. Go outside, look at some trees, or have a real, spoken conversation with someone you trust. And third, slow down. Listen, you do not need to quit your job, sell all your belongings, and escape to a mountain to find peace. You just need to slow the pace of your current life down enough so that you can actually experience it rather than just surviving it. And a huge part of managing stress is how you handle setbacks. This is where resilience comes in. Life is not always going to follow your perfectly laid plans. You are going to make mistakes. People are going to disappoint you. But resilience is a practice skill that protects your Ikigai. When things go sideways, just remember, failure doesn't have to become your identity. Actually, scratch that. It shouldn't be an identity at all. It can simply become information. It's just data teaching you what to tweak, what to improve, and what direction you need to pivot to keep moving forward.
Okay, the final stretch. Section 4, how to find yours.
So, how do you actually discover your very own Ikigai? You break down something as incredibly massive as life purpose into 4 highly approachable questions. I highly recommend mentally bookmarking these or even grabbing a piece of paper and writing them down later. First, what do I love? These are your passions, the things that make you completely forget to check your watch. Second, what am I naturally good at? Be honest with yourself about your unique skills. Third, what creates value for other people? How can you actually contribute and be useful? And fourth, what kind of work connects my skills and interests with my future growth? The intersection of those 4 areas, that sweet spot right in the middle, is where your Ikigai lives.
As you're mulling over those questions, remember, do not stress out if you can't find the perfect answers immediately. Ikigai is not some magical formula that strikes you like a bolt of lightning out of nowhere. Your purpose doesn't usually just appear suddenly. Most of the time, you build it slowly. You figure it out by trying new things, by making a bunch of mistakes, by learning new skills, and by paying really close attention to those rare moments when you feel the most alive and fulfilled. It is a process of discovery, guys, not a final exam you have to pass on the first try.
The ultimate takeaway from this explainer is that you don't need to be famous, you don't need to be wealthy, and you certainly don't need to live by anyone else's definition of success. You simply need to curate a life that feels deeply meaningful to you, one small, intentional choice at a time. So, as we wrap things up today, I want to leave you with this final, powerful question to reflect on. What is the reason I want to wake up tomorrow? Maybe it's a loved one. Maybe it's a creative project you're itching to get back to. Or maybe it's just the exciting journey of finally figuring out what your Ikigai is. Let that question linger and let it guide whatever you choose to do next.